Well, hi there, and welcome back to Scream With Me. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite horror movies and my favorite music, and other types of music and other types of movies, but mostly horror and metal. So, we are going to continue and finish up our journey in the Resident Evil franchise with expectation, jubilation, and for the upcoming Resident Evil movie, I wanted to go through the series and rewatch them and talk about them and spotlight them and praise them good and bad. And we are going to now finish up and talk about Resident Evil, the final chapter. And unlike Friday the 13th, this was the final chapter. It actually stayed that way. So, I really, really loved this movie. I loved it better than the previous one. This movie was just fantastic. It's one of the best in the series, in my opinion, which we will get to my ranking of them at the end of this discussion. This movie was released in 2016, written and directed again by this Paul W.S. Anderson. Boy, he just had his fun with this series, didn't he? And so did his poor wife, you know what I'm saying? So, this movie stars Milla Jovovich, Iain Glen, Ali Larter, Ian Macken, Fraser James, Ruby Rose from John Wick, which you may know her from John Wick. She was the deaf girl in, John Wick 2? And William Levy. That's the stars of this movie. And yes, we'll go with that. Let's begin, as always, and as usual, with Let Daddy Tell You a Story, okay? So, it's story time, and let's go. I really loved the usual opening, unique opening credits and recap. This one was a little bit longer, as could be expected, because it's the final chapter, right? So not only do you get an Alice recap where she sort of updates her story, but you also get a T-Virus where they completely recap who, what, when, where, and why that the T-Virus came to be. And there were some really cool opening scenes. The little ski lift where the little boy goes septic and, attacks. That was an excellent scene. And that was I really liked that scene. And so we get a recap of the past movies, her story, and we get a recap of the T-Virus itself, where they talk about, Alicia, the little girl, her doctor father who created the virus to help her with progeria, which was the disease she was dying from, and how, as usual, the corporations are going to take it over and try to turn it into something for money, usually to kill a bunch of people for money. Ain't that America? Actually, it's all everywhere, all big countries and their governments, but America seems to be, especially adept at doing that. But, yeah, so we have the Alice recap, the T-Virus recap, and then we have Alice looking like she is escaping from the White House. The D.C. Washington, D.C. is where the last movie ended, where Wesker had them. And we see Alice on her own, trampsing around the deserted Washington, D.C. area. And it starts out with a really cool action sequence, of course, where she fights this big, giant, demon-looking winged creature. Looks like a damn, well, I guess it's their version of a dragon, yeah. So she fights that, and, that's a pretty cool scene, and she ends up in, like, this little lab-type area where she has been identified, of course, by the Umbrella satellites that are watching. And, the next thing we know, she's being contacted by the Red Queen herself. So the Red Queen, tells her, hey, we need to talk. And the Red Queen, starts off by giving her a little shot to the audience and everything, and everyone. And that is that on the entire planet, there is only 4,472 human beings left alive. So you're like, okay, that's not a lot. That's less than what would have been left in The Stand. Stephen King's The Stand. It was 99% or 98% of the world population, which would have been a lot more than what is left now. So there's only 4,472 people, humans, left alive. And by the end of this movie, there'll be a hell of a lot less than that. So there's not really a whole lot. Let's hope it's the high end of the gene pool, okay? Or we can be like back in caveman times or something. But so the Red Queen informs her of this, and then informs her that there was an antivirus that was created, and that she needs her help. Now, of course, Alice is like, do you absolutely believe in your, binary head that I am going to believe and trust you? But Alice, the Red Queen, then explains to her, a little bit more, and says that, I can't, my programming is set a certain way. I can't do anything about this. But you have to trust me, and you have to come and get the antivirus and stop this. What was it that she said? That her programming was that she could not harm any employee of Umbrella. But at the same time, her program also programmed her with a fundamental respect and protection for human life. So you've got this sort of conflicting thing within her that she cannot watch the human race be wiped out. Wesker had lied. Wesker had gathered all of them together in Washington, D.C. at the end of the movie. You thought to fight the Red Queen, but it doesn't seem like that's working out that way, because the Red Queen is like, no, Wesker is back at the hive, and that's where the antivirus is, and you have to get there. So she basically, tells her that there's the antivirus there. She's got to get there. She's got to stop Wesker, and she's got to release this virus within 48 hours, and she reprograms her little timepiece to 48 hours and said that the attacks that are going on the last human settlements to wipe them out will be complete in 48 hours if you do not get there and release this virus. So off we go. So, she takes off on this journey. There's several action sequences, as you can imagine. One where she steps into a trap and ends up fighting a little group of Umbrella commandos. Then she's captured by this sort of, it's like a moving convoy, a moving tank convoy, and it's got that damn Dr. Isaacs in it. I mean, oh my God, don't we hate him? but he is in there, and they've got her, and he is some kind of total freaky religious nut, talking about an infection. Um, he is like this total religious lunatic, and action ensues, and she manages to. There's a huge fight between him and her. She cuts his hand off to be able to operate the motorbike, and that's how she gets away. So she does manages to get away in these huge action sequences. She manages to get away from them. She makes she makes her way to Raccoon Sea, where she finds a group of survivors that have. It almost reminded me of Charlton Heston in the Omega Man. They had managed to secure this building against the undead, and it was a settlement. It was a human settlement. As a matter of fact, it was one of those human settlements that the Red Queen was talking about. And here's where we're introduced to our team for this movie, which plays into a negative for the last three movies. One of the negatives of the last three movies is that people have a habit of poof disappearing, because there is no mention of, and will be no mention of, where the hell is Jill? Where's Luther? Where's Jill? Where's Becky? We don't know. They were in Washington, D.C. with her at the end of the last movie, and we don't see them now, but we're introduced and no mention of them. And we're introduced to a new core group, and that would be Doc. Claire is back. Yay. Somebody that we know. So Doc, Claire, Christian, Abigail, they're all back. And so these are the new little core group of strike team that we have. So while she's there, we have these really cool action sequences where they defend this place. Now the whole time, countdown, but there's a lot of really cool action sequences in this where they defend this settlement against Isaac. Dr. Isaac is still alive. He just will not die. And there's some very cool action sequences where they defend this place against his attack of hordes. Basically, he's got hundreds of thousands of undead following him to come and take these settlements across the planet. What few that there are left, and this is one of them. So we get to see that. This core group manages, to get out and draw them away from the building to go to the hive to complete their mission. And we have the Thin Man and what's the guy's name? Razor. So we have Razor, and we have Christian, and we have Abigail, and we have Doc, we have Claire, and we have Alice. And they are going to infiltrate, the hive, and we get to see that. So they get there. As soon as they get there, though, right when they're outside of it, right before they make entry, Wesker has the Red Queen unleash the Cerebus. And that is the dogs, of course. So we get to see this big, giant, fight against the zombie dogs who try to take them out. Who did we lose? We lost a couple of people, a tag-along. We always have the tag-alongs that are cannon fodder for kills. They managed to get away from the dogs, which were very cool. The special effects in this entry were very cool. They managed to get away from the Cerebus, this pack of zombie dogs, by jumping into the river. They get out and they make entry into the facility where we lose Christian. Now, a little back step, one of the things the Red Queen had told her was that there was a, mole, an operative, that somebody in that facility, the settlement, was a traitor. So we of course don't know who that is. You're left to kind of guess and wonder which one of them it is. To tell you the truth, I thought it was Abigail till she died. And that's sort of how you figure out who it is that everybody else is fucking dead. Yeah. But because they don't let you know until everybody else is dead. But so we lose Christian, and there's all kind of really cool action sequences. As it almost reminds me of Escape Room and The Cube, which I have brought up before. But definitely like escape room kind of stuff is going on in this facility. Razor and Jill, I keep wanting to pretend Jill's in this movie, I guess. But Razor and Alice ends up in falling through the floor into a little trap. It really is like escape room. And they end up fighting these, I don't even know I don't think they gave them a name, so you have to make up one of your own. And I just called them Little Venoms because they really look like the Venom. They look like Venom. They're these creatures that look like Venom. So Razor gets killed in that one. Abigail got killed in this giant turbine. So we know they're not the traitors, right? So yeah. Then Doc, he shows up, and now it's him and Alice. The Thin Man, he fell through a hole in the floor and was basically terminated by being dropped like hundreds of feet down there. So we're left with Alice and Doc, and Claire has been fallen into some kind of little box, like little plexiglass cage, and you don't see her. How the hell she got out of that, we don't know. But so Doc and Alice managed to make it to the main room with Wesker, who has now did something that he told the Red Queen to, quote, wake them up. And I was expecting some kind of Uber boss, like the Executioner again or something. So I was like expecting some kind of Uber boss. But instead, it's Dr. Isaacs. And we find out that the crazy religious loon in the traveling convoy was not Dr. Isaacs. It's a clone. And we are also, so we're introduced to this Dr. Isaacs, who shows her that he has the antivirus, but there's only one, and he's got it in his hand. You know what I mean? So he's got it in his hand, and he's like, if I drop it right here, it's not going to do any good, so drop your weapons. So he sort of got her, held hostage, and Doc, and he then introduces us to, to Alicia. Now, see, that's what I get for not looking at my notes right there in front of my face, but I didn't. Back when they got to the hive, the Red Queen had promised to tell Alice the rest of the story. So she did, and that was that this whole thing had been planned by Dr. Isaacs and a group of rich folks, of course, who basically, because of climate change and all of the other things in the world, and their own zealotry and greed, they knew that the world was going to extinct itself. So why not do it themselves? As if they were some kind of biblical apocalypse. So they were going to, do it themselves and all go into cryonic suspension. And once the plague was over, they would have a world left. Once everybody was infected, the Red Queen could wake them up. They could release that antivirus, go outside, release the antivirus. It would kill all of the undead and destroy the T virus on the planet, leaving them, that's their small group, however many that would be, to rule this brand new world. Talk about, egomaniacs. But, yeah, so that was their goal. So Dr. Isaacs sort of explains that in further detail when he brings Alicia out, whom we now discover is old and in a wheelchair because the medicine only worked a little bit, the T-virus, on her particular illness. And we find out at that point that Alice, who we've been following the whole time, is also a clone, the first clone of that model. She is Alicia, and this is her older self, and the Red Queen is her younger self because she is also Alicia. So we have, the child that Alicia was, the woman Alice that she would never be, and we have the real Alicia. So, we find this out, and Alice doesn't want to believe it, but then she manages to become convinced. And we also find out that Doc was the traitor all along. Well, to be honest with you, that was kind of really no surprise to anyone because he was the only one left. When Claire steps out from around the corner, they thought, they don't explain how she got out, but she steps out around the corner, and, we now know that Doc was it, but there wasn't anyone else it could be because he's the only one left. We knew it wasn't Claire, and we, knew it wasn't Alice, so it had to be Doc. That was a little flaw in the movie there, but, so then you have a lot of little mind trippy stuff that goes on because she knows she's got to get Isaac's dead. And you have to also remember that the clone Isaacs that she thought was in that, armored caravan on the way, he is a clone too, but he doesn't know it, just like she didn't know it. So we've still got that Isaacs out there. We've got the real Isaac asshole in here. We found out all of this information. It actually all now makes sense. And here comes the showdowns. Now, the first thing that they do is they take care of Wesker, which was kind of sweet to see. And that was because Alicia still owned 50% of the company. She fires Wesker, which allows the Red Queen to cripple Wesker from where he was standing by shutting a door on his leg, and it cut his leg off. So he's laying there bleeding to death. There's really nothing he can do. And Alice, of course, and Claire start going after Isaac to get the thing, whereas Alicia just starts, goes up to the computer and starts, I guess, downloading her neural net into it because she knows that they're all fisting to die. The last thing that Claire did was kill Doc, and then the last thing that Alice did was put a bomb on Wesker and pulled the pin and told him as long as he held that pin, they would be alright. But he was dying, so sooner or later he was going to open that pin and the facility would be destroyed. So she's given herself yet another time factor here. And Alicia, she's okay with it because she's standing right there by him over there. She's here and he's over there dying. And she even has a funny statement, when he says to help him. She's like, there's nothing you don't need any help, you're dying, just get on with it, which I thought was kind of funny. But so you have these huge, 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 major boss battle between Alice and Claire and Isaacs as they try to reach the surface. That goes on for a while. Claire gets, debilitated, but she doesn't die. And we have the major boss battle of the franchise, which is Isaacs and her in that laser room that has always been so prevalent in these movies that I call the cube laser room, the hallway where it likes to cut people up with the lasers. There's a fantastic, fantastic boss battle between those two. And she ends up killing him with a grenade and getting the virus and going up to the surface. Unfortunately, we see that Isaacs is still not dead. Okay? But she still manages to get to the surface where she tries to drop it, but she catches it because all of a sudden there's a gun at her head, and it's Isaac still alive. And, it's like, are we fixing to have a big fight again? You know what I mean? But what he doesn't realize is that his clone is just coming around the corner, and he comes up thinking he's going to take care of Alice until he sees his own clone there. And that discombobulates him enough that they have a big fight. And he ends up stabbing the real Isaacs to death. And then he is eaten by his zombie horde right as Alice throws the virus down, thinking that it's going to kill her as well. And that's it. The dead all start, the undead all start collapsing because that's it. So, you think for a second that Alice is dead, maybe, or something, but she is then awoken again by Claire, who wakes her up that morning. It took her, she had to manage to get back up to the surface. So, Alice wonders how come she's not dead. Well, Claire had brought up this little computer interface, and the Red Queen comes up and tells her, that the T-virus, that she had managed to stop, and that these tiny amount of human beings, which I guess between the attacks and all the deaths you saw, half of it had to be gone. So there's probably 2,500 people left on the planet. The human race is reduced to about 2,500 people, which is kind of neat. That's a neat concept to play with. But how are you going to rebuild the Earth from 2,500 people? It'll happen, of course, but you're talking worldwide. Worldwide, there's 2,500 people left. So, anyway, she has explained that that antivirus did kill the T-virus in her, but that's all. That it didn't touch her human genes, so that's why she's still alive. Because the undead, they don't have any left. The T-virus has taken them over, whereas in her, it had just bonded. So it just took the T-virus out of her and left, her human stuff intact. There you go. American words. Yeah, so the movie ends with her, of course, accepting all of this information, and it ends with her riding down the road letting us know that although this virus, the antivirus has been released, it's still spreading, and it's going to take years, as she says, for it to finally make itself into every corner of the world. And in the meantime, what few humans were left alive were going to need protection until the In other words, there's still, for years, there's still going to be areas as it expands. There's still going to be areas that, it hasn't reached yet where there may be undead and creatures. So she lets you know that as she rides off into the sunset, and toodaloo, it's over. The franchise is over. Like I said, I really, really loved this movie, this installment. I thought that it really kicked ass. The action sequences, the storyline, the way it wrapped it all up. I think it's a perfect franchise. I know it's got a lot of flaws, but I meant it's a perfect franchise in that, you have these 6 movies. It's one continuous story, which I love. It evolves and yet still manages to stay. There is lots of flaws, like I said. Well, not lots of them, but there are some very, very obvious flaws. And that is the way that people would disappear in this franchise. We have no idea what happened to Becky and Jill and Leon. They didn't say, they didn't allude. All the Red Queen said was that Wesker had betrayed them in Washington, D.C. And yet Alice was alone going through things. So did they die? How did he betray them? What did he do? Are they still alive? We don't know. And so in the last 3 or 4 movies, there were people that vanished, and were never mentioned again. We don't know what happened to them. Are they alive or dead? So that was a flaw to me. A big flaw. Sometimes the movies were too packed with characters that you didn't get to know them well. That was especially evident in the last movie, in Retribution. There were so many characters, even if they were the same clone. It's still individual characters that you didn't know. We really weren't left to know much about Ada at all. Leon, Luther made his little appearance. So yeah, they're all there, but we didn't get to know them, so that's kind of evident in some of the movies as well. But overall, I love it, and this movie is an 8 out of 10 to me, which is a whole point up from the last movie. And I will now tell you, let me put them in order here. Okay, that was easy. So this is my ranking for the Final Fantasy. I've been playing Far Cry 5, and it's had my mind in like Steam. It's like my mind is like in Game World. So we are not in Final Fantasy. We are in Resident Evil. So my ranking of the Resident Evil franchise is as follows. At number 6, we have Resident Evil Retribution. Still love it. 7 out of 10. Still love it. But it is number 6. Resident Evil Extinction is number 5. I love this movie. The crows are coming. And I love you, Mickey. I'm so sorry you died. So yes, number 5, Resident Evil Extinction. Number 4 is Resident Evil The Final Chapter. I really, really love this movie. I love it, love it, love it. Number 3 goes in order. Number 3 is Afterlife. I really liked Afterlife. Number 2 is Apocalypse. And number 1 is the original Resident Evil. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 6, 4, 5. That is my ranking of the Resident Evil franchise. As I've told people on other streams, as I've told people in person, and as I have told anyone who's ever asked me, I think this was a perfect franchise in concept. I liked the way it was one continuous story. It really pleased me. It's my kind of franchise. Um, I love franchises like this, Halloween. But Halloween's got serious problems. I absolutely cannot stand Halloween 3. I don't even consider it. Resurrection is tied, because I can never make up my mind, but Halloween Resurrection is like tied with Prom Night remake as the number one worst horror movie ever fucking made. I don't really care for 4 and 5. I love Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, especially the producer's cut. But I like them both. I like the theatrical cut for its reasons. I like the producer's cut for its reasons. So yeah, but I love Halloween 6. That's why I love my Halloween 6 shirt. I love H2O. Those two movies are like I look at as individual standalone movies. That's how I enjoy them. I love 1, 2. I love 2018 and Kills, and that's my favorite timeline. So, but hey, that franchise is disjointed. There's Friday the 13th that I don't, that I really, 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 really don't like. There's Nightmare on Elm Street that I really, really, really don't like. Scream is a franchise that I have no problem with, but there's only been 4. So, we're not up into this kind of territory. So, I love all 4 Screams. I'm sure I'll love the 5th one. What other big ones are there? I like all 3. I Know What You Did Last Summers. I'm trying to think of franchises in which I don't have any hated installments. I know a lot of people don't like I Know What You Did Last Summer, the 3rd one. Um, what is it? I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. I liked it. It was fine with me because, it was just what I thought it would be. Um, I like all 3 of those movies. I love all of the Final Destinations as well. I don't dislike any of those installments. I don't think any of them were stupid. I don't think any of them were, bad or problematic. So there's franchises, but they're small. 1 to 5 movies. And this is a 6-movie franchise. There isn't any in this that I don't like. I love every one of them, just like those franchises that I just mentioned. You have to remember, the more installments a franchise gets, the more likely it's going to have something that you don't like. Um, so notice that the franchises I mentioned are usually, like Chucky. I can't stand Bride or Seed, but I love all of the rest. I love Curse, and I love Cult. I don't care for Bride. I don't care for Seed. So even in that franchise, there's a couple I don't like. But Resident Evil goes into the so far. Well, I can't really say so far about Resident Evil because this franchise is completed. There is no future installments, and so it's got its rating permanently on the list of a franchise that I don't have any disliked movies in. I don't know. Are they going to make a new Final Destination? And I'm not talking about TV shit. Let's get that straight, okay? Um, I have no interest in all of that. I am watching the new Chucky when the episodes come out on YouTube. Um, I like the first 2. I like it. I like the lead character. I like everything so far. It's just a TV show, but I like it. But I have no interest in any that other crap. I don't care to watch the Scream TV show or that new one. I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. Oh, there's a remake, and then I go and find out it's a fucking TV show, and I'm like, just, but that's just me though. You can love it if you want to. That's what makes the world go round. So, yeah. I'll always know what you did last summer. Scream, Final Destination. I don't dislike any of the Candyman. Um, I like the new Candyman. So there's a few franchises in which there's no movies so far that I call bad, and those are one. And Resident Evil is one of those. So I appreciate you tuning in and listening to me go through the Resident Evil as we excitedly await in anticipation for the the new Resident Evil movie. And yeah, so I will see you in the next. I'm going to do a little horror movie, a little India. What's not a little horror movie? What's a horror movie? It's a horror movie like Misery is a horror movie. It's a horror movie like Misery, Stand By Me. It's very Stephen Kingish. It's not by Stephen King, but it's very Stephen Kingish. Dolores Claiborne, Misery, Shawshank Redemption. It's got horror elements to it and dark themes, but it's not a horror movie per se. But it's a little movie called 12 and Holding that I've been wanting to do a video about, and that'll be my next film thing. I still need to get to my Nightwish top 10, but I have to be in the mood to headbang, and this is Northwest Florida. The weather is changing, and I feel sick as a dog all the time here in the last week or two because the weather is changing, and that is never good. It's just never good. But thank you for joining in and watching my Friday the 13th, my Resident Evil chats, and going through the franchise. And I will see you in the next one. Love you, miss you, bye. And keep screaming. Put your ranking of the Resident Evil in the comment section if you would like to, and let me know. What did you think of this one? What did you think of the others? Do you have a ranking? I don't know. You tell me. And I will see you in the next video. Love you, miss you, bye. Keep screaming. Stay scary. Keep screaming when appropriate. Later.